Please be seated. To be means to be in competition. So says Screwtape, a senior tempter demon in the lowerarchy of hell, to his incompetent and inexperienced nephew in one of his letters, providing counsel and advice of how best to tempt and finally ensnare human beings. These fictional letters, written by C.S. Lewis and compiled as the book The Screwtape Letters, provide an opportunity to reflect on themes of life, faith, love, and God from the perspective of those who do not participate in them, from those who are below, or whatever direction they might be in. In one of these letters, Screwtape explains the difference between our Father below and the enemy, who we know as God. Okay, bear with me. I'm going to have to do my best impression of a demon. We'll see what happens. The whole philosophy of hell rests on the recognition that one thing is not another thing, and especially that one self is not another self. My good is my good, your good is yours. What one gains, another loses. Even an inanimate object is what it is by excluding all other objects from the space it occupies. To be means to be in competition. Okay, I'll go back there in a minute. Looking around at our world, there seems to be plenty of evidence that Screwtape is right. The general population is divided, lonely, suspicious of each other, each doggedly holding on to their portion of the pie because to be is to be in competition. In such a world, tit for tat seems to be the only option, and the concept of a gift is nonsense. And yet, in this world, much like the world he lived in, Jesus says to those that listen a different perspective. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? But how are we to do this when sometimes it's hard enough just to love the people who love us? Loving our enemies feels almost impossible. Is that what Jesus is doing? Is he just giving us something impossible? So here, about love, Screwtape does have more to say. Now, the enemy's philosophy is nothing more nor less than one continued attempt to evade this very obvious truth, that to be means to be in competition. He aims at a contradiction. Things are to be many, yet somehow one. The good of oneself is to be the good of another. This impossibility he calls love. This same monotonous cure-all can be detected under all he does, and even all he is or claims to be. He is not even content, even in himself, to be a sheer unity. He claims to be three, as well as one, in order that this nonsense about love may find a foothold in his own nature. Jesus reveals in his words not the impossible, but what is really going on. For God is kind to all. All. God the Son, Jesus, through whom all things were made, knows what it is to give freely to all with no hope of repayment. In the very act of creation and sustaining life, of creating us in his image and granting us memory, reason, and skill, God has given with no expectation of repayment. And Jesus, as he speaks these words on his way to Jerusalem, knows that he himself must and will love his enemies, turn the other cheek, offer his own shirt, his own body. So to those of us that listen, Jesus tells what is really going on. And lest we remain in the heady theological space where we left Screwtape reflecting on the Trinity, he also has a few specific examples of this nonsense that God calls love. God introduces into matter that obscene invention, the organism, in which parts are perverted from their natural destiny of competition and made to cooperate. He has also made the offspring of the humans dependent on the parents and given the parents an impulse to support them, thus producing the family, which is like the organism, only worse. For the members are more distinct and yet somehow also more united in conscious and responsible ways. The whole thing, in fact, turns out to be simply one more device for dragging in love. You know, it is kind of fun to hear things from Screwtape's perspective, even though he's wrong and right at the same time. God is looking for every excuse, every device possible for dragging in love. Because love is what is actually going on. Love is who created the universe and what it is for. Not only do we have a God who is love, but who is and was willing to put some literal skin in the game and live this love with and for us. It is as Screwtape fears. We who are many are one body, the children of God formed into a family. Each one of us has received and will continue to receive more than we could possibly pay back. Giving without hope of return is possible because God is who God is. It is possible because we experience it every day, every breath, every moment we have with each other on this side of glory. Loving enemies is possible not because we are capable of it or because it is easy, but because God is who God is. It is possible because we live our lives as the body of Him who loved His enemies. So, we have some good news to tell to the world. When we find ourselves encountering Screwtape's version of things in the world around us and even in ourselves, we are living proof that it is not ultimately so. It is as Screwtape fears. God is love. And this nonsense of love is actually the realest thing around. To be is to be loved by the one who gives with no hope of return. And to live in such a way that the world around us, our neighbors, wonder, what is happening down at St. Luke's? Amen.